Hello everyone, my name is Jamal Martinez and my topic I'll be presenting to you today is titled Racial Injustice Within Medical Institutions, and I will also be discussing how we as members of our community can take action in taking on social change for the better. Before I begin, I'd like to define a few key terms for you. First, let's define racism. Merriam-Webster defines racism as a belief that race is a fundamental determinant of human traits and capacities, and that racial differences produce an inherent superiority of a particular race. In other words, a reliance that one race is superior to another. Another definition I'd like to elaborate on is social construct. Merriam-Webster defines this as an idea that has been created and accepted by people in society. Let's keep in mind that society creates all social constructions. Next, I want to give you a brief summary of the research paper I wrote that is the root of my presentation today. In my essay titled The Construction of Racial Inequalities Within Medical Institutions, I elaborate on how the quality of healthcare given to Black people from the white medical professionals falls absurdly short of medical attention required of them. Much of this is due to the absence of equality, lack of trust in doctors and nurses, and undersupply of healthcare opportunities for people of color. Occupational segregation strips away opportunities from those already less fortunate. Medical professionals must utilize their position of power to close the gap of mistrust between themselves and their patients or clients. Healthcare advice should pertain to a patient's medical record, not the color of their skin. Anti-discrimination policies and the Hippocratic Oath must be honored by those we put our trust to keep us alive and safe. Racial inequality within medical institutions must change by inspiring all people of color to place themselves in positions of power, justice, and medicine to rid social institutions of racism. There are many that believe any opportunity is equal to all, and with that opportunity, hard work, and determination, life can only be what you truly want it to be. Though some of the statement may be true, we must realize that there is a shortage of opportunity for African Americans, and this is due to the history they've endured. From slavery in the early 1600s to the era of Jim Crow law, down to redlining in the 1930s, and now with mass incarceration, Black communities face challenges that others don't. In an article by Christian Weller titled African Americans Face Systematic Obstacles to Getting Good Jobs, he explains the statistics of Black unemployment rates compared to white unemployment rates, and how even just last year in 2019, the numbers reflect the struggles Black people face daily to make ends meet. He says, and I quote, "African American workers often see their unemployment rates go up sooner than white workers when the economy soars, and their unemployment rates also take longer to decline when the economy improves than is the case for whites." End quote. We have to realize the inequality when comparing opportunities from white people to Black people, because though it may be an uncomfortable topic, it is the truth. One key concept I want to discuss is the intersection of education and power. Dorinda Carter Andrews talks about the consciousness gap in education in a TED Talk, and how educators and people in power must understand the importance of being race conscious. There are three major points they need to comprehend as privileged educators in our community. There is an existing system in power that maintains itself by oppressing other cultures. This is known as racial and social class hierarchy, and we all take part in this system one way or another. Also, as educators, colorblindness must stop. Being conscious of a student's success means knowing what each student needs to equally accomplish goals as the more privileged classmate beside them. Third, the idea that hard work and talent is all it takes to be recognized and rewarded does not apply in our society. As we saw in the previous slide, the lack of opportunity does not go hand in hand with the idea of meritocracy. Now, how can we eliminate racism in social institutions? We must have a vision for change. To rid our communities of social inequalities, we must encourage all people of color and race to place themselves in positions of power, medical practices, and justice studies. We must also self-reflect on our own race consciousness and hold those accountable to participate in racial injustice. First, let's discuss power. Power as a noun is defined by Yahoo as 1. The ability to do something or act in a particular way, especially as a faculty or quality, and 2. The capacity or ability to direct or influence the behavior of others or the course of events. Now, in the civic arena, there are 6 sources of civic power. 1. Physical force. This is power in its primal state. 2. Wealth. As we all know, money talks. 3. State action. This pertains to government actions. 4. Social norms. This is what other people think is, quote, acceptable. Next, ideas. This falls under individual liberty. And lastly, numbers. This pertains to crowds and number of people. There are also laws of power. 1. Power is never static. It either accumulates or decays. 2. Power is like water. It flows like a current, always moving. And 3. Power compounds. Power tends to generate more power. A current event and inspirational leader I'd like to set as my example for this presentation is Madam Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris was born on October 20th, 1964 in Oakland, California. She has been a United States Senator since 2017. And she not only is the first woman as Vice President-elect, but she is also the first woman of color to obtain this position. So earlier when I stated, to rid our communities of social inequalities, we must encourage all people of color and race to place themselves in a position of power. This is precisely what I mean. As you watch my presentation or any other presentations regarding racial inequalities in social institutions, one may question why they should care. If anything I've discussed has never actually affected you or your lifestyle, that's your privilege speaking for you. Now, there's a philosophy to debate this thought. Peter Singer believed in a philosophy that we, as a member of our community, have an obligation to prevent harm through poverty any way we can. This is a great connection to racial inequalities and injustices we see or confront daily. As upstanding friends, family members, innocent bystanders, and community members, we must not only self-reflect in our own race consciousness, but we must also hold those around us accountable to do the same in preventing social institutionalized racism. Our privileges may make it seem as though we have no business interfering with confrontational topics, but our privileges actually give us more power to stand up against injustice. As many of us probably learned this year, we must be anti-racist because being not racist isn't enough. In Module 8 of this course, we watched a video of Ben David speaking at a TED Talk about 5 arms of outreach in communities that help strengthen togetherness and a healthy environment for all. These 5 arms are representatives of how the entire community can help those struggling or less fortunate than themselves. First, we have the government. David suggests that funds the government uses to put felons behind bars are used rightfully so, but those that need medical attention pertaining to mental illnesses do not fall within the same category. Therefore, those in government have the ability to redirect the resources for that particular need. Another arm is nonprofit. Nonprofits that can help build youth enrichment programs to keep kids off of the streets. Next is schools. Keeping children in schools where they belong with educators that understand that not every student has the same resource, knowledge, or assistance as the next student. Fourth is businesses. Adults understand that crime does not mix well with business, but giving a second chance to someone with a past can make all the difference in the community and that individual's life. Lastly, we have faith-based communities. Those that are members of faith-based groups understand that forgiveness is possible and changes too. This takes me to my last point, confronting inequalities, ways we can solve it with steps of action. First, we can create and make way for affordable access to higher education for everyone of and any race. Next, vouching for progressive and fair tax systems. And lastly, construct universal access to basic health care. As members of our community, our voices together speaks volumes. Ways you can help are to vote. Vote on your local, state, and national candidates. We saw this action take place in the most recent presidential election, which was historical. Another way you can help is to always be willing to educate yourself on matters that affect not just you, but those around you dealing with aspects of inequalities and injustices. Thank you.